So, good evening, teachers and panelists. I am Alison Jean Enong with my fellow researchers Carla Apaitan, Alexandria Quizon, and Ryan Ephraim Gabilagon. We are the Group 3 from the BS Pharmacy Level 3, and this is our research proposal. For the title of our study, our group wishes to conduct a study about knowledge, attitude, and practices among the residents of General Santos City about complementary and alternative medicine. As a brief introduction of our study, CAM is a broad category of resources that includes health modalities, practices, and associated theories and beliefs. It includes resources that give a positive outcome-based perception of the users, and it is generally divided into 5 categories. These 5 categories are the alternative medical systems, the mind-body interventions, biologically based treatments, manipulative and body-based methods, and energy therapies. These 5 categories will be further discussed and will be focused on our data gathering instrument, which will be a researcher-made questionnaire, wherein we will give 3 examples for each so that we can gather the data that we need for our study. Most national studies existing today about the general perceptions and usage of CAM among Filipinos are mainly conducted in the upper regions of the country, such as cities in Luzon. This results in a lack of research-supported local data from the lower regions. In this matter, this study aims to fulfill that gap and provide data about the CAM practices within the city of General Santos. We need to have our own local assessment of the prevalence and manner of CAM usage in our community in order to identify potential problems. In our paper, we included an RRL about the potential problems that can be identified in a community where CAM is prevalent, and that is the dangerous practice of self-medication. And this study aims to provide a data in our local community to see if CAM is indeed prevalent in our community and if the same potential problem can be identified in our community. For our statement of the problem or research question, this study aims to determine the knowledge, attitude, and practices among the residents of General Santos City about complementary and alternative medicine or CAM. Specifically, it will seek to answer the following questions. First, what is the demographic profile of the respondents in terms of age, sex, level of income, and educational attainment? In presenting the data that we're going to answer this SOP, we're going to present our data using descriptive statistical tools such as the mean, the weighted mean, and the frequency of distribution. For our second SOP, what is the level of knowledge, attitude, and practices among residents of General Santos City towards CAM in the domain of those 5 categories that I've mentioned earlier? The alternative medical systems, mind-body interventions, biologically based treatments, manipulative and body-based methods, and energy therapies. For this part, we're also going to use descriptive statistical tools such as the mean, weighted mean, and frequency distribution to present the data that we've gathered. For the third SOP, is there a significant relationship to the level of knowledge towards the practices of respondents about complementary and alternative medicine? So in order for us to analyze the data that we've gathered and answer this SOP, we're going to use an inferential statistical tool, specifically the Pearson's R or the Pearson correlation coefficient, because this SOP asks for a relationship between 2 of our variables, which is the level of knowledge of the respondents and the practices of the respondents about CAM. And Pearson's R is it's a great tool that can help us to analyze the data that we have. And lastly, for our fourth and last SOP, is there a correlation between the level of knowledge, attitude, and practices of respondents toward their demographic profile? In this part, we're going to use also an inferential statistical tool, specifically the chi-square test of independence, so that we can tell if there is a correlation between our variable and the characteristics of our population, and in this case, the demographic profile of our sample.
So next is the alternative hypothesis. This study hypothesized that the residents of General Santos City have sufficient knowledge about complementary and alternative medicine and that they have positive attitudes and opinions about it. It is also expected that the area has moderate to high CAM prevalence. The level of knowledge of the respondents is significantly related towards their practices on complementary and alternative medicine. There is a correlation between the demographic characteristics of the respondents and their knowledge, attitudes, and practices on complementary alternative medicine. This is the hypothesis or the assumption of the study. It will tell us later on whether to accept or reject the hypothesis after the data gathering. So this is our theoretical framework. So first one is the external factors. It involves personal, which is the self-esteem, emotion, personality, traits, and etc. Second is its demographic profile. So this involves age, gender, income, education, and etc. Third is the environmental stress, media exposure, and etc. So in external factors, there are three, which is behavioral beliefs, normative or society beliefs, and third is the control beliefs. And under in behavioral beliefs, um, it involves behavioral attitudes and it results to behavioral intention. And in normative or society beliefs, it involves subjective norms, which results to behavioral intention. And in control beliefs, it involves perceived behavioral control. And then it also results to behavioral intention. So with this, the results will be behavior or the actual performance.
So to clarify Kyla's explanation, the theories that we're going to use in this study are the two closely related theories, such as the theory of recent action and the theory of planned behavior. So in this diagram, you can see that there are boxes that is colored green. Those boxes that were colored in green are the functions of the theory of recent action. So as you can see in the diagram, the external factors has an impact on the behavioral beliefs and the normative or society's beliefs of the respondents. So these two are the behavioral belief will lead to the behavioral attitude of the respondents. So their beliefs will influence their attitude on a specific subject. In this case, about CAM. Their beliefs about CAM will influence their attitudes about CAM. And then the normative or society's beliefs about CAM will also define the subjective norms of the society about CAM. So it dictates the accepted accepted practice the accepted practice of CAM in the community or the society. So depende sa belief ng society na naka-indicate kung accepted ba yung practice ng CAM or hindi within a specific community. So for the theory of planned behavior, ito sila lahat, including the green colored boxes, and these additional two functions, namely the control beliefs and perceived behavioral control, these are all the functions in the theory of planned behavior. So theory of planned behavior is similar to theory of recent action, except that it has two additional functions. The function of perceived behavioral control. So in this theory, nadagdagan lang ng sense of control yung respondent, meaning it's not just the subjective norms and their attitude that dictates their behavioral intention, but also their sense of control. So all of these functions will lead to the respondent or to a person's behavioral intention and will ultimately lead to their behavior or the actual practice or performance. For the conceptual framework, we use the CAP method since this is a CAP study about CAM. So as you can see here, we have demographic profile of respondents. We have a box that contains a demographic profile of respondents. As mentioned earlier in the theoretical framework, the demographic profile as an external factor has an impact on the knowledge and attitude of the respondents about CAM. So for the knowledge about CAM, this is where familiarity and awareness of the respondents about CAM practices. This is where we can see if there is a familiarity of, or awareness within the community about CAM. And then under the attitude, this is where we can see if their attitude on CAM is positive or negative, and their attitude can be influenced by different factors such as cultural influence, societal influence, and their perception or belief. Then these two, the knowledge and attitude, will indicate and lead, will indicate and explain why they practice their specific, why they practice CAM, or why they practice or do not practice CAM. So, depende sa knowledge and attitude nila ang kanilang paggamit ng CAM. If they practice CAM, gaano kadalas, like what's the frequency of their usage, and what is the choice of CAM modality that they're using.
So for our scope and limitations, this study follows a quantitative and descriptive research design. It is focused on obtaining data only on the knowledge, attitudes, and practices among the general Santos City residents about complementary and alternative medicine. In-depth information about the different modalities and complete list of methods and practices under each of these modalities are not included in the explicitly discussed. The scope of the study is only limited to the relationship between the knowledge, attitudes, and practices of the respondents regarding CAM. The respondents of the study are limited to the residents within the Bajo community located in Purok o Dagri, Barangay Conel, General Santos City. The data gathering will take place at Barangay Conel and will be conducted from August 2022 to May 2023. In the limitation, not all the practices in the CAM will be discussed or included. So this is the location and the map where the respondents are located.
So next, we will proceed to the literature review of the study. First, we will define the CAP analysis. CAP analysis, or the knowledge, attitude, and practices, is a method of survey used to provide access to quantitative and qualitative information. It identifies the known and done about various health-related subjects and establishes the reference value for the future assessment that will help measure the effectiveness of health education activities, ability to change health-related behaviors. CAP analysis in terms of level of knowledge, as stated in this presented 2012 study, despite the growing public interest in complementary and alternative medicine around the world, healthcare professionals appear to know little about CAM and the lack of confidence to respond to patient questions because they have received little to no formal training in CAM. More than one-third of the
Excuse me,
participants.
students, if I may cut you, no, parang medyo, pwede wala na lang, tama ba? Pwede wala na lang RRL? Ay, tama ba, Ma'am
Yes,
Raisa?
ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am
ma'am.
Raisa?
Yes, ma'am. I think we need to ask them na lang, ma'am, to focus more on the methodology so that we can proceed with the Q&A.
So for the methodology, for the research design, quantitative descriptive study, survey research. This is where we formulate the survey, and for the convenience convenience sampling, this is it is who's willing to participate in the community. And for the numerically measured variables, it is just like quantitative, where we get the mean and the knowledge and others. And for the identification of research questions and purpose, formulation of questionnaire. First one is validation. We have three validators, and this uh, where we submit our questionnaires and to validate. And next one is the pilot testing. This is where it is need a reliability test uh, to get the pilot testing using statistical tool called um, run back alpha value. And next is approval to conduct the study, submission of letter of permission to the research advisor, panelist, department head, and school dean. Next is data gathering. Submission of letter to the community is important because in order to collect data. Provide consent letter to the respondents. Distribution of questionnaire. Next one is encoding analysis, interpretation, and presentation. And next, to achieve the research objectives. Answer SOP, accept or reject hypothesis.
Okay. Are you done now, Mr. Gabilagon?
Yes, well.
Okay, so thank you for that very comprehensive presentation about your proposed study. May I ask you, Miss Enong, what really motivated your group to conduct this study about CAM?
So in our RL po, we most of our RL, especially in the CAP analysis in terms of level of knowledge, we have observed that most of the RL that most of the studies that we saw was the level of knowledge were usually low, both on the community and in the medical professionals, while at the same time a lot of studies that we have seen about the attitude on the CAM indicates that there is a positive attitude towards CAM despite of a lower level of knowledge about it. So um, it, in as a result, there are a lot of studies that as a result the practices were also there are a lot of studies that indicates that the practices of CAM was prevalent in a community wherein the level of knowledge is low, while at the same time the level of knowledge is low and the attitude is positive. So this poses a great risk, health risk, because despite the lack of evidence about the efficacy and safety, and despite the lack of their own knowledge about CAM, they're still utilizing CAM and practicing it. So it poses a great risk because it can have negative repercussions since it lacks enough evidence on its efficacy and safety. So since this potential problem may occur, um, studies should be conducted in communities to know if this problem is present in a certain community. And we have observed that in the Philippines, most studies about about the prevalence of CAM is conducted in the upper regions of the country, which is in Luzon. And there are lacking data about the CAM prevalence in our region, which is in the lower region, which is in Mindanao. So this is what motivated us to conduct this study so that we can provide or contribute additional local data about the prevalence of CAM and see if this potential problem is present in the community.
Okay. You are discussing about CAM, no? I can remember the advisory of Ms. Rodolfa, actually from the nursing department. They have already conducted a study about CAM. So kindly look into that particular paper that will serve also as your basis, no? If it is a replication study or not, no? Kasi they have already conducted about knowledge, attitudes, no, and practices of the community here in Jensan about CAM. So kindly look at that in our library. If it's not available in the library, you may ask our research director, no, regarding the study conducted by nursing students about CAM. I would like to ask Miss Alexandria, because your local is Conel, specifically Purok Odagre. And that will be one of my discussion later on with my colleagues here, because why only Odagre, no? And why Conel? Now, Miss Alexandria, what made you decide to conduct it in Barangay Conel, and specifically Purok Odagre?
We specifically choose the Purok Odagre in Barangay Conal kasi yun yung community po na may community profile na meron kaming data about their community profile. So para easy po yung research and pagkuha ng mga respondents.
You
Na-commute
made
po.
mention that it will be easier for you to get the respondents, and you have the data about the profile of Purok Odagre, because primarily if the reason of the proponents, no, you considered Conel, no, we have 26 barangays here in Jensan, and out of the 26 barangays you have chosen Conel. Sa tingin mo, aside from you have that profile, Miss Kyla, what motivated the group to conduct the study in Barangay Conel?
So we chose po Barangay Conel because we we heard, ma'am, that there are a lot of people who uses there po, and it it is the chosen community, and the pharmacy program can impart some community service from the data of research.
Okay, so maybe you can part of your discussion, Kyla. No, it's a good point that you have highlighted that it is Connell is one of our adopted communities. No, so we adopt Connell. However, in your locale of the study, you just made mention about Purok Odagre. Kasi it is not only Purok Odagre that we are also dealing with, especially when we are talking about our adopted community or adopted barangay, because we are extending also our assistance, no, and activities po natin in other puroks as well. So it is not only in Purok Odagre. So I think later on, no, part of my suggestion to the panel, if we can enlarge, no, the the scope and ng ng study nila. It's not only Purok Odagre. And you, Miss no, Mr. Gabilagon, what is your sampling design? What is your sampling design?
Ano po, ma'am? Um, yung pag-present po sa sa questionnaires tapos parang ibigay naman siya, ma'am.
Sampling design, primarily, ano yung specific sampling design? Yes, sabi mo, ibigay ninyo yung questionnaire. Pero how are you going to determine your sample? Yung sampling design ninyo, Miss Alexandria.
We will utilize po the convenience sampling.
Okay, convenience sampling. So, when we are talking about convenience sampling, yung sabi nga ni Mr. Ryan kanina, ibibigay nyo. So, kay sino nyo ibibigay yon?
Sa community po, ma'am.
Okay, whoever is available, not during the time that you are collecting the information. Maybe one of my suggestions na later, because we will be considering the entire barangay of Conel, mayroon po kasing RHU, no? At saka meron doong barangay hall wherein people are keep on having some transactions, no, in those offices and units, at pwede doon na kayo mag-standby para yung lahat na pupunta sa RHU, sa Rural Health Unit or Barangay Health Center at sa Barangay Hall, sila yung mga respondents ninyo. So kasi sila naman, they will be representing the entire CONEL. Kukuha sila ng mga ano doon, ng mga certifications, no? At may mga aprubahan sila sa barangay, kukuha sila ng mga any data, no, sa barangay. So at least they are representing the different puruks already, no? Well represented yung mga different puruks. So yun yung ano natin. Although you mentioned about convenience, at least you know already what is convenience sampling. So kung sino lang yung available at the time na magkakanda kayo ng study, magko-collect kayo, so sila yon. And I would like to clarify with your research design. What is your research design?
So our research design, ma'am, is a quantitative descriptive study.
Okay. But then in your SOP and even sa ibang mga ano ninyo, no, sa ibang part ng paper ninyo, you keep on mentioning about correlation. You want to determine the correlation of those variables, no? So ano ba talaga ito? Yes, that is a quantitative type of research. Specifically, anong klase ng non-experimental research ito?
Correlational po, ma'am.
Okay, so kindly take note na lang, Mr. Ryan Gabilago, no, in your research design, that it is a quantitative non-experimental correlational research design. So yun yung mga nakita ko doon, although the rest, maganda naman nakita ko. And with the SOP, Ma'am Queen ko and Ma'am Eroy, kasi it is more on complementary alternative medicine. Doon sa profile good, Ma'am Eroy, can we add ethnicity?
Yes,
Baka kasi yung the kind of ethnic group where they came from can also contribute, no, doon sa mga practices nila. Okay, can we add that one?
Yes,
I already have written in their SOP dito yung suggestion ko. Okay, so those are some of my questions and suggestion in your paper. I will just be adding more later on, and we'll be hearing also from the suggestions of Ma'am Quinco and Ma'am Eroy. Thank you.
Okay, so good evening once again, everyone. In this study, I have so much interest in this study because of some personal some personal knowledge on the evidence of CAM, at the same time looking into the idea that CAM is now becoming a major public health problem. That's why when in your paper, students, I think this is on in your introduction part where you have written there, you conducted this study in order to identify potential problems. I think, if you look at in reality and in some of the papers, we have plenty of problems when it comes to So as what I have said, this now becomes a major public health problem. And so much with all of these problems on CAM, I would like to I would like you to add to your introduction, if it is possible, to add there some of the existing problems, because we cannot deny, with CAM that there is an existing problem, even if we know for a fact na gusto natin malaman yung kanilang knowledge, but we cannot also disregard some of the existing problems when it comes to CAM. And I have heard this new students a while ago saying na yun nga, there's a problem with CAM. So that would be on my introductory part, sa introduction part, if you can add. And then, doon na lang sa last part, would like to explore more, explores more of that problems specific to general statistics. Now, moving on with your paper, students, I have here some suggestion when it comes to the significance of the study. So, sa significance of the study, you have limited people or group of people or entity that will benefit in your study. Konti lang ito. Pero, if we really have to look into this study, marami pong nakikinabang sa study ninyo. Let's say, for example, I haven't had seen any of the policymakers, policymakers when it comes to getting some significance of this study. Bakit policymakers, you have to go back sa idea with CAM as a major public health problem. So, sa part ng mga policymakers, they can come up with, they can come up with proper regulations, proper regulations on how to use all of this and one major group that can benefit in this study, I think students na hindi yung naisulat doon, I believe are some of the patients. Marami po tayong mga pasyente, na they have to be protected, against the use of CAM. Kay ang common, they would not declare it to their physician that they're using the CAM. And as a pharmacist, tayo, alam natin yon na pag hindi natin na-declare kung ano yung nainom natin while we are having these diseases or taking other drugs, you have possible side effects, possible so on that side of the significance of the study, pwede nyo rin idagdag dyan yung mga pharmacists. So, yung ating mga pharmacists on handling and conducting informations or giving informations to patients whom we know na gumagamit ng CAM, nagagamit nito. So, kasi again, we cannot deny, there are those na alam natin gumagamit, although tayo as medical professionals, meron tayong sometimes pagdudula on that side, but we are also aware of the fact that we have patients and meron rin na kami kilalang doktor na who is also an advocate of CAM. So, pagdating doon sa mga policy makers, let's say for example, si FDA, hindi nyo naisulat dyan. So, pwede doon si FDA or some policy makers on the proper regulation of the usage of CAM para naman yung ating mga patients will be protected against the use of substandard, yung mga tinatawag natin sa mga counterfeit or unqualified, inappropriate treatment. And in your introductions, you have classified 5 different CAMs, and one of it massage. massage, no? Mamahilot. You have said it in your paper, yung mga massage. So, ako, when we had our business with massage, I get shocked with the ideas of some of the clients who go into that massage spa looking for some inappropriate treatment because of their belief na if you conduct extra service, you will be protected against prostate cancer. But on the other side, we look at it as, oh, this is prostitution now. So that gives me the interest in this study. I do believe that this is a good study. You know? So you take the suggestion of being students a while ago, you have to check on the study that was conducted by the nursing department. What about if this is just a repetition of, halimbawa, parang duplication of what the nursing students have done? Are we going to change their study or just add a variable na slightly mag-iba doon sa nursing students?
Hello, ma'am. Maybe my suggestion would be, if ever it's a repetition with a nursing study, I think dun tayo magta-target sa respondents other than the Odagre, since the title is Among Residents of General Santos City. They might consider other barangay if
In my mind, Mama Belo, I'm also thinking of why not limit their study on camp pa rin, but on the perspective of patients. Okay, na yung mga pasyente mo, inom o kanang tambal at the same time, mo go through with camp na wapad yun na kanang mga camp. There are plenty good na which is not regulated by FDA. So, pwede po siya, it depends on the students kung saan ang gusto nyo doon. So, if that would be if the reason is a repetition or a duplication of what the nursing students have done. Okay? So on your methodology students, is this a face-to-face interview, survey research, or just a Google form will be sent to your respondents?
Ma'am, I think, ma'am, what is more appropriate to for this, because we will be conducting this in the community, they need to come up with hard copies of those questionnaires. And with what has been also discussed earlier ni Ma'am Quinco, kung buong Gensan din kasi Ma'am Mabe, medyo malawak na din, no? And as mentioned earlier by Miss Kyla, because Connell is our adopted community, it can be the data, no? At least kahit paano when we come up with our 5-year community development plan, the result of this study can be an input to that. Na like for example, majority of the people, ito yung mga practices nila, it can be included in our measures. And then, pwede din yun specifically assign ng community extension officer natin sa pharmacy department. No? So, at least meron na kayong baseline din pagdating sa mga health education activities. So, ako, I prefer Connell, Ma'am Mabe, pero entire Connell, no? Because para well represented ang lahat ng puroks. Para mas impactful siya pagdating doon sa strategic plan natin and community extension natin ng mga activities,
Yes.
yung alignment.
Yes.
Okay lang?
yes,
Yes,
okay, noted. What about Ma'am Car and Dian? How about if we focus on one disease, like for CAM for antihypertensive? I believe during the title proposal, we had this antihypertensive CAM lang, hindi siya as a whole. So at least we narrowed it down to one disease. It's for hypertension among CAM. If you would agree on that.
Ako okay lang. That's why I said a while ago, if we will narrow it down, we can tell
Kaso daming ano kasi sila, ma'am.
Pero ang question is, hypertensive. Kung saan sa mga hypertensive for the whole Gensan or hypertensive only for
Barangay Colonel pa rin.
hypertensive patients living in Barangay Colonel or hypertensive for the whole Gensan. Kasi si Dean was saying a while ago, we can focus on with Barangay Colonel now.
Yes,
So
oo,
that
Barangay Odagre. Barangay
so,
Colonel na lang talaga.
So if we are to narrow it down, are we going to narrow it down with patients, hypertensive patients living in Barangay Colonel?
Ang problem lang natin dyan, ma'am, kasi they opted to have convenience sampling. No, whoever will be encountered doon sa barangay, RHU, and busy kasi ito sila, di ba? They have their professional subjects. So, kung kailan sila magko-collect ng data, baka mahirapan sila kung we go into purposive sampling. I-identify ko sino yung mga hypertensive clients. Oo. Kaysa sa general siya, Ma'am Queen ko. Kasi convenience sampling, usually pag sa community, unless they have enough time, no, to collect the data. Ang concern ko lang yan later on, kasi they have the Monday to Saturday classes, it will be difficult for them if we will be
a part of their
having.
recommendation na lang din?
Oo, part na lang ng recommendation
Part ng
siguro nila sa
recommendation
sunod,
na
ma'am.
lang.
Oo, kasi ang nakikita ko dun baka mahirapan sila sa collection eh. Kasi ang suggestion ko, para hindi sila mahirapan na magbahay-bahay pa sila, they will just be staying doon sa barangay hall, ang ibang kagrupo nila doon sa health center. Kasi doon yung pinupuntahan ng mga tao. And then they will be providing questionnaires. Ganun po.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, klaro yung mga students? Klaro yun? Okay. So, convenience sampling. So, hindi na lang natin ina-narrow down para at least hindi kayo mahirapan no, sa pag-collect ninyo ng.
Okay. Students, you have written here in your research instrument, it is a researcher-made questionnaire, or is it a self-developed questionnaire, or are you going to adapt?
Yes po, self-developed questionnaire po.
So that's a self-developed questionnaire. So are the respondents allowed to offer their suggestions or remarks apart from answering the questions that you have prepared?
Ay, honestly po, hindi pa po kasi natapos yung questionnaire din na napag-usapan din po namin yan to maglagay ng parang open-ended question at the end about parang remarks po nila.
Okay, so ipakilagay na lang sa papel kung ano yung gusto talaga ninyo when it comes to your questionnaire. Okay, so far, Dean, I think I am done with my suggestion students. So can I give now the floor to Ma'am Quinco?
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Eroy. So with the introduction, I think I go with Ma'am Eroy's suggestions. You had there mentioned, no, halos ang mga statistics niyo about problem with the with the CAM, but you don't have there, no, hindi niyo na mention ano yung mga problems niyo, specific problems, no, na when you mention those problems, mas maganda siyang weighting nan as a sense of the problem and urgency, kaya nyo ikakandak si CAM. So other than mentioning, no, the statistics who are using CAM, so if you have there also the statistics of the problems encountered, no, by those CAM users, mas maganda. Okay, so kindly take note of that. And for the introduction, Ma'am Car and Dean, it goes with 3 pages. Are we amenable to the 3 pages o meron tayong tatanggalin na portion doon na ililipat sa sa RRL? Masyadong ano na siya,
Yes, ma'am. Masyado ng lengthy, masyado.
lengthy na siya. So kindly narrow down also your introduction, no, with a sense of urgency, no, the gap, the problem, then some of the statistics, local, national, no, or international statistic, and then go with the goal of your study, no, And then yung sabi namin ni Ma'am Eroy na what are those problems usually encountered in CAM. So narrowed it down into 1.5 page or siguro kung hindi talaga kayo 2 pages. Okay, and yung mga nandun na ilipat nyo lang sa RRL. Okay. With the null hypothesis, you had kanina presented the alternative hypothesis. Tama ba? So which is which ang gagamitin ninyo? Alternative hypothesis or null hypothesis?
I don't know.
Ma'am
Yung
Ray,
alternative po, siguro.
alternative. So but with our template, Ma'am Risa, alternative ba tayo or null hypothesis?
Null po.
Null hypothesis, ma'am.
Null po.
So go with the null hypothesis, but I think too lengthy din yung pagka-present nyo ng null hypothesis. No, so just go with the short and brief, no, presentation of your null hypothesis. There is no, ganun na, diretso na lang. And then your variables. And for the significance of the study, yes, I second the motion with what Ma'am Eris had said. No, kindly include pa those persons or associations that would benefit in your study. So that includes FDA, no, our policymakers, and even as pharmacists, no, and even our school. How will our school also benefit from this study? Okay, kindly include that one. With your conceptual framework, I think the theoretical framework also is too lengthy. No, if you could just also narrow it down to yung discussion yun ng framework, maganda na yun. No, kindly narrow it down also into 1 page lang for your theoretical framework. And for conceptual framework, I didn't see in your framework the dependent and independent variables, although you have narrated, no, those variables at the first paragraph. But please include sa framework mismo na makikita na namin doon saan ang IV and DV ninyo. So let me ask Kyla, what are your dependent variables and independent variables?
The independent variables is the CAM or the complementary and alternative medicine, while our dependent variable is the CAP or the knowledge, attitude, and practices.
Okay. So how will you present those IV and DV? Kalinya lang ba si KAP or I don't know, Ma'am Risa, kung tama ba itong conceptual framework nila? So if you're going to interpret based on the knowledge and attitude, that would be the basis for the practices, or we are just going to look into directly the KAP, I mean. Hindi ba sila magkalinya? And then one arrow
I'm
for...
sorry. Wala ko kita sa ilang papel, ani ma'am. Hindi ko kabaloon sa picture sa ilang conceptual framework.
Sige, ako na lang mag-share. This one. Can you see it ba, Ma'am Lisa? Klaro ba?
Yes, ma'am.
This one. So, what would be your suggestion, Ma'am Lisa?
Ang problem, another problem, wala ko kabalo sa ilang SOP. Sorry, wala ko kabalo sa ilang SOP. Wala ko yung paper kasi
May, excuse lang po, hello po, good evening.
Go
May
check.
correlation po kasi sila, ma'am, regarding sa kanilang i-correlate nila yung level ng knowledge and attitude towards the practice. I think that is their SOP 3.
SOP 3 nga. Yan, significant relationship. Knowledge practices towards the practices, and then correlation between the level of knowledge, attitude, and practices. So, inisa naman din siya. What is the level na? Ito, what is? Significant. Ito, number 4, correlation between the level of knowledge, attitude, and practices of respondents towards their democratic. Pero ito, demographic profile. So, i-correlate si COP with their demographic profile. Tama ba? Not the KA with the practices. Ma'am Che?
Po. Number 2, is there a significant relationship to their level of knowledge? Baba mo na gang. Ayan, towards their practices. Actually, dapat knowledge and ano yan, knowledge and attitude pala dapat yan.
Okay.
Towards their practices. So, kumbaga ba, naka-ano po ba, related po ba yung level ng knowledge nila sa pag-practice nila ng knowledge at the same time yung attitude? So, kaya po siya pinalagay doon. Kasi parang naging dependent variable din ba yung knowledge at saka yung attitude nila ng
Yes.
mga respondent.
And si practices. Dependent variable din siya, di ba?
Okay, but in ma'am.
Okay, go on, Ma'am Lisa.
I think the best solution here is to have the knowledge and attitude as the dependent variables. The practices will be, the independent variables, knowledge and attitude, and then dependent variable will be the practices. And then let's place in the center the demographic profile since they are correlating that also to the variables mentioned.
May ano sila, Ma'am Race, intervening variables. Yun yung demographic profile.
Yeah, if the panelists will agree.
Para mas klaro siya, that is why siguro hindi na na-identify dito si BB and IB. So we'll go with correlational. No, this is really correlational study. A type of
Yes, ma'am, correlational. Actually, ang aking doon sa study nila, ma'am, they want also to determine, di ba? Maganda din yun na if those profile is highly, correlational with their knowledge, attitude, and practices.
So,
silang SOP, yan eh.
1 at 2.
We added ethnicity, as a variable for the profile.
Independent variable. Sige, so parang paano yun isahin? Parang madami silang maging conceptual framework.
Oo, siguro nang ma'am pwedeng demographic profile and then arrow and then yung nila knowledge about CAM, attitude on CAM and practices.
Isali pa dito sa baba din. Now as the DV.
Isahunang nila na siya kanang tatlo na yan and then isang arrow lang from demographic profile. Kasi di ba may SOP kasi doon na they want to correlate the profile with the knowledge, attitude, and practices.
Okay. Then another arrow din for the KA lang connected to the practices for the SOP4. Tama ba? Dito. Parang as is ito na arrow, pero may dagdag silang 1 box. Practices on CAM, ibaba rin nila dito sa baba ng attitude on CAM. So the practices on CAM both could be dependent and independent variable. Or dependent variable lang din talaga siya. Ma'am Risa?
Sorry, ma'am.
Siguro if not to complicate, we'll just be asking them whether ang i-correlate nila is the demographic profile with the knowledge, attitude, and practices. At hindi na i-correlate si knowledge with the practices, si knowledge with the attitude. Kaya parang sa sobrang dami nilang i-correlate.
So that would be included na lang sa recommendation. So after this study, makita nila sa demo, how about si KA sa practices?
Sa SOP kasi nila, meron din kasi dito sila na they want to determine the relationship of of the level of knowledge towards the practices. Na kung mataas yung knowledge nila, kasi pwede din naman i-out natin yung pag-determine ng relationship with the demographic profile with this three. Kasi pwede din yung knowledge has something to do with the attitude and also with the practices.
So let me ask siguro the proponents.
Oo. So sobrang dami ng tables nila nito actually, no?
Medyo complicated siya. So
Kasi
what
pwede din naman ma'am kasi mag-describe na lang sila ng profile and then at least from that, kahit na hindi na nila i-correlate ang profile with knowledge and practices, at least alam natin na ito majority ng mga respondents, they are male and then mga high school graduates. So, titingnan na lang natin kahit na wala silang data, na mag-correlate kasi ang ano na lang ito is they need to determine kasi the level of knowledge and i-correlate nila if mababa ba or mataas ang level of knowledge, does it may can it affect the practices, parang ganun. Good ma'am.
Pero ako din, I would prefer kasali si Demog. Parang as a start na study on CAM.
Gani po.
Basic or ano muna sa Demog before mag-correlate sa attitude to practices. So how about you proponents or students?
Tapos siguro unahin, siguro is there a correlation between the demographic profile and giuna kasi nila itong ibang variable ba? Is there a correlation between the level of knowledge, attitude, and practice towards their demographic profile?
Oo, tama din. Ang number 3 is ganun.
Is there a correlation between the demographic profile and the level of knowledge, attitude, and practices? Parang ganun dapat. Mauna si demos.
Dapat
Ang sequencing lang. I-retain na lang natin, i-retain. So, ang dami nilang nito, ang daming i-present nila.
Kasi I think
okay lang.
Walang correlational sa DEMOG and KAP sila dito sa SOP.
Sa practices, meron. Demographic profile, correlation, SOP4. Correlation between the knowledge, attitude, and practices with their demographic profile. Yun na yun po yun, ma'am.
Gawing number 3, si number 4. Switch lang. This one. Kung gusto talaga nilang ituloy.
Oo, pwede din. Oo.
Sige, let me hear from your proponents. You'll have 2 correlationals. Will you go for that or demog lang tayo and CAP? And Ma'am Chelia?
It depends po sa kanila. But
sige, students?
Ano po yung choice namin, ma'am? Either parang isa lang pwede namin i-retain, ma'am, or
Actually, you have 2 choices. If you retain the 2, correlational na gusto nyo si 3 and 4, or you just have focus on the demographic and i-correlate sa KAP. So we'll have just one, kung demog lang and KAP. Kung dalawa, ayun, after demog, i-correlate nyo na naman sa knowledge and attitude towards the practices. Kung kaya nyo man kaya, edi go on natin kasi yun naman yung i-present nyo.
other group mates.
Sige, i-go na natin. So if i-go natin, you kindly finalize. Sige,
actually, ma'am, sayang manggod ang data. Makolekta manggod gihapon nila sa data gathering. So, I think kaya man nila mag-chi-square at saka mag-Pearson R. So, sayang din. I think mas more mas maging useful yung kanilang yung paper nila kung dalawa na lang.
Sige, so coming from your advisor. Final na yung 3 and 4, pero i-switch nyo lang si number 4, gawin yung number 3. Okay, and then 3 si 4. And then revise your conceptual framework. Finalize your conceptual framework. Ganun na lang. Okay. Now, with your RRL, dito ko na isa-isa na talaga ako, I don't see here narrations on your 5 categories on CAM. You had mentioned here in your SOP, what are the 5 categories? Tama? So the alternative medical systems, mind, body, and the energy therapy has kindly made mention those 5 categories in your RRL. And what are those examples of CAM under alternative medical systems? no? Mas magandang ma-mention and ma-describe nyo rin doon. And let me give you also tips in giving or making your survey forms. Make sure na naintindihan ng mga respondents ninyo these highly technical terms. Kasi pag sinabi mo sa kanilang alternative medical system, ano yun? No? Para mas maintindihan nila if you have the translation sa Bisaya, no? Or in Tagalog, kung anong whatever term ang magamit ninyo, or you have there the definition of the following. I'm thinking kasi na baka hindi nila masagot yung survey form niya if your survey forms are highly technical. That's why kanina I'm looking into your appendices pero parang walang naka-insert na appendices, no? Sana titingnan ko kung how will you construct your survey form. So when you construct, make sure at the level of your respondents and naintindihan nila itong you are talking about the CAM para mas makasagot sila ng maayos. So when you say manipulative and body-based methods, what are those? No, that's very technical. And actually, I'm teaching this one sa Clean Farm kasi kaya alam ko ano yung mga examples under this and maraming examples under this. So I'm thinking of medyo mahaba ang survey form ninyo. Like for example, sabi nga ni Ma'am Eroy kanina yung massage, that's under the manipulative and body-based method. So isa lang yan. Alternative medical system, you have the yoga, you have a lot of that actually. No, so you have to identify all of those examples under each category. Okay? Anyway, you have your validators naman, no, to have your survey form reliable, no, be validated to be reliable. So go back to your RRL, kindly discuss, no, the following CAM there. And then,
Excuse me po, ma'am.
yes,
I
Alison.
have a question po. Sa RL lang po kami mag-specify ng maraming examples under each category, pero sa questionnaire po, ang gilagay po kasi namin doon three common practices under each category para hindi po super haba.
Okay, so if you go on with the 3 common practices, how did you go or how will you go about those 3? So you have there the supportive RRL also. Bakit yun yung top 3 ang napili nyo ng mga examples under these 5 categories? So that should be supported again sa RRL. Now, if you have the statistics on that or study or related study, bakit yun yung pinili nyo ng mga examples? Okay, Alison? Tama din
Yes
naman,
po,
medyo
ma'am.
mahaba ngayon. So you have to choose the top 3 but make sure supported yan ng RRL. Okay, and in your RRL, why have you discussed the integrative medicine? What's the relevance of integrative medicine with your study? That is actually a different thing when you talk about integrative medicine. Let me ask, sino pa hindi naka-recite dito? Other than Allison. Kyla, why do you have to discuss there yung integrative medicine? I think wala naman siya sa variables ninyo. Wala na rin siya sa SOP ninyo. Sige. Kyla? No. Kyla, are you there?
Ma'am, pwede pakiulit po.
Why do you have to discuss pa about integrative medicine on your RRL where in fact it's not included in your SOP and even hindi nyo rin na-mention sa introduction na part? And medyo mahaba yun, ilang pages yun sa integrative medicine. That's a different thing actually when you talk about CAM and integrative medicine. Sige, sino bang nag-include ng integrative medicine sa RRL among you four? Natatawa si Allison. Ikaw ba, Allison?
Kasi po yung i-consider ko din po yung fact na hindi man lahat ng cam users cam lang talaga ginagamit. May iba man na nag-use din along with their yung conventional medicine. So, tapos hindi ko siya na-expand pa. Diba, ano, like, pero i-consider ko na siya kayang, kasi existing man good talaga siya sa community, ma'am, na may users talaga na nagagamit nagagamit siya ng, ano, like, under traditional Chinese, herbal supplement siya, tapos may ginainom din pala siya na, ano, na prescription.
Addison, you're talking about actually CAM yan. When you talk about integrative, meron ng evidence-based medicine. Si CAM, with the further studies, naging integrative pag may evidence-based medicine. So scientific, no, with scientific studies na yun, pag sinabi mong integrative. So let me suggest why not talk about the different categories na ng CAM instead of talking about integrative medicine. Kasi iba na yun. No, mas higher na si integrative compared kay CAM. Mas maraming controversies or controversials in using CAM other than integrative medicine. You can talk kung gusto nyo, no, about that one. Pero hindi siya ganun kahaba. Focus on CAM lang kayo, not on the integrative medicine. Kaya highly technical actually talaga yung ano ninyo yung study ninyo. Okay? So kindly take note of that lang. And then include synthesis in your RRL, please. No? Walang synthesis towards the end of your RRL. Okay na tayo sa research local, na-mention na din. And then your research instrument. How will you go with the validation and reliability test? No? Kindly include that one in your data gathering procedure. You had mentioned there, no, na meron kayong validators na kukunin. But the step-by-step process, hindi nyo na-mention doon. And then you made mention sa data gathering procedure is the pilot testing. Let me ask, how will you go with your pilot testing? Kasi hindi rin siya na-include doon sa procedure ninyo. Medyo maiksi yung data procedure ninyo, no? Pero actually marami kayong gawin. And one is to do with the pilot testing. You made mention there. So how will you go with this one? Alexandria, paano nyo gagawin yung pilot testing? Ayun.
Magkuha po ng sample doon sa, nakuha naming sample sa paggamit ng Rouse of Ma'am. Mga konting sample lang po ng respondents. Then, wait lang. Sa community, doon pa rin po sa Barangay Conel, Purok Odagri, mag-conduct ng research po or mag-ask ng question sa kanila.
So, sino yung respondents nyo sa pilot testing? Doon pa rin.
Opo, doon pa rin po.
How will you compute the number of respondents for your pilot testing? Ilan nga yung target ninyo? Respondents? I think 282.
282 po.
Okay, that's for your final, no, data gathering procedure. How about sa pilot testing? Ilang percent of your respondents?
Around 30 respondents po siguro mag-pilot testing, ibigay yung survey, same sa mga citizen din dun sa community na kondukta namin, which is sa Barangay Conel na po. Then, ang gamitin namin to compute, magkuha po ata ng statistician, tapos magpa-compute po ng yung Cronbach alpha value po para matest if reliable talaga yung questionnaire or not.
Okay, sige. So let me add on that. So from their 30 respondents plus 280, your target is nasa 300 plus. Remember, yung naka-include sa pilot testing, hindi na sila kasali for your final data gathering procedure. Okay, I know, alam din yan ni Ma'am Cherry, ginawa yan ni Ma'am Cherry. So with that, kindly include, no, sa procedure ninyo, how will you go about with your pilot testing? So after validation na yan, no, ng ano ninyo, ng survey form. Okay, take note of that, please. And then last one, with your ethical consideration, how will you dispose your survey forms? You said na you'll go with a face-to-face, no, data gathering procedures or lahat ng mga questionnaire. How will you keep that? And how long will you keep that? And after the research, how will you discard those questionnaires? Sige, Ryan. Si Ryan na lang hindi ko natanong.
As long as hindi pa po kami umabot sa deadline po.
Ano yung
Para as long as hindi pa po kami umabot sa deadline and matapos namin siya as soon as possible.
Okay, so that would be after your
Yes.
final defense. So considering after final defense, how will you dispose?
Like what Dean said, pwede kami magpunta sa RHU, then mostly daw kasi doon po pupunta yung mga patients. Then doon namin i-dispose po yung questionnaires namin.
Ibabalik nyo doon ng questionnaire
Ay,
po.
hindi pala.
Okay, kindly include also this one in your ethical consideration. So there are ways to dispose those forms. Pwedeng shredded, hindi tayo pwedeng magsunog, no? And hindi rin natin siya pwedeng ibigay lang sa basurero. So you could manually cut them out or i-shred nyo for doon sa may mga shredder. Okay, so that's very important kasi sa Data Privacy Act, baka may makabasa doon ng ano ninyo. Although naman din yun ng survey questionnaire form niyo, naka-restrict, but take note of the way of disposing your questionnaire and include that one in your ethical consideration. Okay, so medyo napahaba ko, sorry. So that would be all, Dian. Thank you so much. And thank you, proponents.
Okay, thank you so much. And because we have considered already, the entire community, make it sure that you have the data on how many is the total households, households. Siguro you need to get that one from the local. And actually, we have the study, and you can get that study recently on the barangay profile conducted by our faculty, Miss Risa Francisco and Miss Barona. They have the profile of the community. You can get the number of households there, and maybe each of the respondent will be representing the household. So when the number of households, yun yung compute ninyo per Sloven's formula. For example, if there is 500 households, and then you compute for the Sloven's formula, because every time that you have your client na sagot doon sa questionnaire niyo, they are representing already one household sa community. Okay? Thank you so much. Can we proceed now, Ma'am Quinco and Ma'am Ma'am Quinco sa ating
Wala po ata si...
wala na si Ma'am Eroy. Mag-join tayo sa breakout room.
Hindi na po ako mag-join po, di na.
Sige, ma'am.
Ay, hindi na.